The things you're going to need to make this table topper are 1 yard each of 2 different prints, and you want contrasting colors. When I went to Walmart, I was looking for some St. Patty's Day fabric, but of course they sold out. So I settled for this, which kind of looks like a shamrock, and this coordinating print. That way I could also use it for Easter or just spring. You're also going to need a yard of batting of some sort. I'll be using flannel here. Like I've said in previous videos, I like using flannel as the batting because especially for table toppers, it lays flatter on the table. But go ahead and just use batting if that's what you have. And sometimes I even use fleece. You're also going to need some sort of circle template. Now this can be any size that you choose depending on how big you want your finished table topper to be. I want mine to finish around 20-22 inches. So today I'll be using my Pyrex bowl here. It's the largest in my set, and it measures about 11 3/4 inches wide. You're going to need some pinking shears if you have them. I'll be using a large piece of paper here to make a paper template. You're going to need your ironing board and iron, and of course your sewing machine with matching thread. Today I'll just be using white. Let's get started. So the first thing that I'm going to do is take my freezer paper here. I'm going to lay my Pyrex bowl over it and trace around. Just like that. Now go ahead and cut that out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it in half and make a crease. Open it back up and fold it in half the other way. Matching crease to crease that you just made. Now just open it up again, and this should be cut into 4 equal pieces. Alright guys, now taking a ruler here, on the beginning and the end of each of these creases, I'm going to measure in 1/4 inch and make a dot. Now with a longer ruler, of course, I'm going to go ahead and connect these dots, making a square inside of the circle. Now on one of these 4 flaps here, I'm going to make about a 3-inch line. Just like that. And this will be our cutting line. I'm going to take my hole punch here, and at the beginning and the end, I'm just going to punch a hole. And I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to punch a hole on each of these corners of the square. Alright guys, and this probably doesn't make sense now, but I assure you it will later in this video. So now you just want to set this off to the side for a minute. Now you just want to grab one of your fabrics, make sure that it's nice and smooth and there's no wrinkles, and grab your circle template, whatever you're using, and out of each fabric and your batting, we're going to cut 4 circles. I have my fabric here folded in half, so I'll get 2 circles at a time. So now you just want to cut it out. Alright guys, so now I have 4 pieces of this green fabric, 4 circles of this flower fabric, and 4 circles of my batting fabric. So now you just want to lay your batting off to the side for a minute. You want 2 of one print and 2 of the other print. And we're going to lay these off to the side for just one moment. And now we're going to lay out how you want your table topper to be. So because this green print doesn't really have a direction, you don't necessarily have to worry about placement. So I'm going to put one green one here, one flower print here, and this one, it does have a direction. So for this, I'm going to have my flowers facing the right way. I'm going to take the other print, and I'm going to have the flowers facing down in my green. So this is essentially what the top of our table topper is going to look like. When we sew these together, we're going to sew a straight line connecting our circles, and these will be flapped open, just like that. So our next step we're going to do, so now you just want to take our template piece here, and remember our cutting line. You're going to line that up on your circle. I have a disappearing marker here, and I'm just going to make a couple dots. Just like that. You probably can't see it at home, but it's right here. Now I'm just going to take my ruler, and I'm going to draw a line between the dots. Just like that. And I'm going to do that on all 4 of these pieces. Alright guys, just like that. Here's my lines here. Now I think I said that it didn't matter where you put your cut lines on either side. It does. You want them either here on the sides where the 2 pieces are going to sew together, or here on the bottoms where the 2 pieces will sew together. Not on the outside circles. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and take our rotary cutter, and I'm just going to cut on that line. You could also just use scissors. Now the next thing we're going to do is sandwich our pieces together. So I'm going to move these 2 off to the side for one moment, and move this one down here, and I'm going to focus on this one right here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a piece of batting here. Then I'm going to take a green piece of fabric without the slit in it, and I'm going to lay that face up on my batting. And then I'm going to take this piece, and I'm going to lay it face down. Just like that, and go ahead and throw some pins or wonder clips around the edge. Now I'm going to work on this one right here. So it's the same thing. I'm going to take a piece of batting. I'm going to lay my flower print with my flowers going up, because this is a top piece here. The next thing I'm going to do is take my green piece of fabric, and I'm going to lay that face down. And pin that together. Now I'm just going to do the same thing with these other 2, making sure that my flower fabric on the bottom circles are facing down. Alright guys, so I have my circle sandwiches all pinned together, and I went ahead and just made some labels here just so that I don't get confused. So I have a top 1, a top 2, bottom 3, and bottom 4. And that will just help me with my placement when I get these all sewed together. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take these over to our sewing machine, and with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, backstitching at the beginning and the end, we're going to do a continuous seam all the way around the circles. And you want to do that to all 4 of these. Alright, so I have all 4 of my circles sewed together, and like I said, it was one continuous seam all the way around. So next thing I'm going to do is take my pinking shears, and I'm just going to pink the edges, making sure not to go through my seam. And I'm going to do that to all 4 circles. Alright guys, so the next thing that we're going to do is go ahead and turn these right side out. So I'm going to start with one at a time so I don't get confused. And through our little slit here, we're going to turn this right side out. Now I'm just going to use a chopstick and make sure that's nice and rounded. Just like that. Then go ahead and take it over to your ironing board and give it a good press. Alright, since this was number 1 here, I want to make sure that my cut here is on the right hand side. And also make sure that my flowers are facing the right direction. I want these facing up. So now just move on to number 2. Alright guys, so when you have your 4 circles turned inside out and give them a good press, it's time to sew this together. Now the tops of our circles are the ones that should have the slits here, and my slits are facing each other. So I have one here and here, and one here and here. So the next thing that we're going to do is I'm going to grab my template here, and I'm going to line this up as best I can, just like that. Now you really don't have to line up this cutting mark because it would have moved, but you just want a little bit of fabric poking out on each side of these punched holes here. Now I'm going to sew this side to this side, so I'm going to put a dot right here and a dot right here. I'm going to grab my ruler here and connect the dots. Just like that. I don't know if you can see it here. And this is a disappearing marker, by the way. So the next thing that we're going to do is sew piece 1 to piece 2. So we're going to flip piece 2 over. We're going to put piece 1 over top of that. And on the line we just made, we're going to sew a seam, backstitching at the beginning and the end. So you should have something that looks like this. As you can see, our cuts here are at the bottom, so when we open this up and give it a press, you won't even see them anymore. So our next step is I'm going to take this over and give it a good press. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing for pieces 3 and 4. Alright guys, so I have piece 1 and 2 here, all sewed together and pressed, and piece 3 and 4, all sewed together and pressed. Now we're going to join these 2 pieces together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip piece 3 and 4 over. I'm going to lay piece 1 and 2 over top of that, matching up our center seam here. And I'm going to put a pin, or 2, right there and right here, just to make sure nothing moves on me. Now I'm just going to make sure that this is lined up as much as possible, and I'm going to stick a pin. Turn it around, and do the same thing on this side. So now we just want to sew these together. So what I'm going to do is take my ruler here. I'm going to line up a line on my ruler with the seam here, and also with the point where our 2 circles come together. Just like that, and I'm going to draw a line. Now I'm just going to take this over to my sewing machine and sew right down that line. Just like that, and if I didn't say, you want to backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now just remove your pins, open it up, and take this over to your ironing board and iron these flaps down. Alright guys, so now we're almost finished here. You can see here's the front, and when we flip it over, there's the back. The next thing that we're going to do, and the final thing, is we're going to top stitch this. So we're going to want to top stitch around the outside and also these flaps, so they stay down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start somewhere on one of these round sides. I'm going to come down and sew until I hit the flap here. I'm going to go ahead and sew down this flap. When I get down here to the center crease, I'm going to stop with my needle down. I'm going to turn my project, and then I'm going to sew down this flap. And continuing along this circle. And keep doing that until I have one continuous seam all the way around. Alright guys, so I only have one more flap here to sew down, and I thought I better show you guys this. Like I said, I was using an 1/8" seam allowance, and I started over here, and I'll just show you how I finish up this last flap here. So I'm just going to keep sewing. Trying to keep my hands out of the way so you can see what I'm doing. Alright, so now that I'm coming up to these flaps, I'm just going to continue my seam over this flap first. Alright, so when my needle hit essentially this part right here, right in the seam, I'm going to stop with my needle down, lift my presser foot, I'm going to spin my project, and I'm going to sew down this last flap. Now that I have that sewed down, I'm just going to continue my seam to the next circle. And here's where I started, so I'll just stop right there and backstitch. Now just cut your threads. Now our cathedral window style table topper is done. And I think this will look great on any spring table. Now if you can see here, I probably could have matched up my circles a little better here, but I think it still looks great. This table topper was pretty easy to put together, and like I said, depending on the size of your circle template, you can make these any size you want. I hope you give this video a try. If you like this video and want to see more of my videos, go down below and hit the red subscribe button and give this video a big thumbs up. If you have a question about this video or any of my other videos, or would just like to leave a suggestion for a future upcoming video, leave me a comment. Feel free to share this video across your social medias. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.